Casey is one of our two invited speakers in this session from Blue Ring Imaging in the United States. Over to you. Welcome.
It's great to be here with you, be with people in the room who are passionate about stereo. I need more of you guys in my life. I don't have a lot of that. So this has been a passion of mine, and I was unaware for quite some time that there was a group like this at such a high level. So I'm based in St. Petersburg, Florida, and this talk is really about underwater 360 3D camera design engineering and applications. It's less technical and more of a high-level overview of the state of underwater 360 3D and what's been achieved in Hollywood and the DoD. We're talking about kind of the inception of underwater 360 3D, and then how my company, went about going about testing out concepts and ideas to get to where we are today. And what we've learned is that we started out creating full immersive attractions for theme parks, and that has now become a very, very powerful tool for robotic perception, teleoperation, and synthetic training. So this is me, about 25 pounds heavier 12 months ago, and this is some of the places that we've used 360 3D from live streams with Good Morning America, theme park attractions, ocean exploration, cinematic productions. And in my first company in 2015, we started, it was called Virtual, kind of a generic name, stands for Virtual Reality Technology Underwater Limited, kind of silly. And now I spend most of my time with Blue Ring Imaging. But in that time, we hit every film festival that had 360. We hit all the major natural history companies that were on the forefront with, the big three were BBC, National Geographic, Discovery, and we've got a major project right now with Ocean X, as well as Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, taking these cameras to full ocean depth, and you'll even potentially see some live streams soon, which I'm pretty excited about. If you've seen Underwater 360, there's a really good chance my partner and I have touched it. We've either created it, we own it, we've played a part in it. And my partner, Jeremy Childress, put a Google Street View camera in 2006 with Red Bull through a wave. And then it was restarted again in about 2014 with GoPros and some machine vision cameras. And it's just steadily progressed from there with a number of different types of designs, which you can see on the top right. There's a mixture of mono and stereo, and upper left is all mono, and then the bottom left was stereo, and top middle stereo. So this journey down memory lane for me a bit was about, how do I create the best experience in a headset, which is, for me, that's 360 3D. So highest resolution, highest frame rate, uncompressed, in a package that was portable and could go anywhere around the world and be stitched easily. And you can imagine that 30 GoPros to test our ideas was not the easiest stitch. However, we did create a theme park attraction with it, and SeaWorld helped fund it and helped us work through kind of the body of knowledge that we needed to develop in order to build a streamlined solution. And this was painful. I mean, you can imagine we had stereo pairs around the sides, and then we were doing a little bit of stereo on top, and obviously you can't necessarily see that in a full spherical video. We were pulling cards, and if one camera went, then that shot was not able to work. We had to clap sync manually sync every single one of them up by frame, and just pray that they all worked. This was capable of doing up to 12K in stereo per eye, and at which time there were no screens for that, so it really didn't matter. But we were finishing at 4K, and we did a couple films, and did this brute force approach, and decided that, and all this stuff is diver depth rated, and then we decided, okay, we're really going to double down on this and get serious about how do we develop a solution which solves for some of the problems that we're seeing, still trying to be on the forefront of building the best for Hollywood and entertainment, panoramic screens, headsets, the best possible underwater solution. So a couple months later, we moved into the Virtual One, which was Blackmagic Micro Studio cameras, which were small cameras at the time. They had external recording. They were 4K, 30 frames per second, ProRes 422. We wanted to get to 60, but we had to give that up. But they had great tri-level sync, which was really, really important, obviously, in post-production. And so some of the design considerations were unified control, unified power, and then we had these convergent design recorders that you can see on the side that you were able to see if the cameras were working or not and recording. And it turned out that the HDMI cables were just a huge pain. They would come out if you hit a wave, and then you'd have to deconstruct on the boat. It was a really difficult problem, just that single thing alone. And then it was also like pushing a refrigerator through the water. But we got through it. We created some really great content. It shot, up 6K per eye, created about 50 gigabytes per minute. And then we created Into the Now. And you can see that through SideQuest, and there's also an app for it. It didn't necessarily hit the market as good as I'd like, but I can share some files for anyone who's interested. And went on all these amazing places: South Africa, Palau, Caribbean. I mean, you name it, we hit it. And went to Guadalupe, and I'm trying to just think of some other projects. Did something with Royal Caribbean, worked for the royal family in Saudi Arabia, and I think it was Saudi Arabia. And well, we worked under a production company, and they were working with the royal family. And then the Virtual One has since become a tabletop coffee table for me. And I was trying to figure out, how do we create a solution which is more portable, and maybe we can detach the power from the camera itself, so that we don't have to open up the camera and let condensation in. Maybe, how can we get to ProRes RAW? How can we get to 60 frames per second? And ultimately, we land on the micro cinema cameras from Blackmagic, which still were able to do synchronization. And this became, for a couple years before COVID, a really popular camera in this space. We shot with BBC, Blue Planet VR, Discovery Shark Week, did some stuff for National Geographic, did a piece with Shark Water, which never hit. And there's this constant theme in the 360 cinematic world, how you can spend a lot of money, a lot of time, create a really nice piece, but sometimes it just, for a number of reasons, it doesn't hit the mainstream. And so I've got a full folder full of pieces which a lot of people have not seen, but there's still a playlist on YouTube, and there's still some things in Oculus Quest which I could share afterwards. But as you can see, this is stereo pairs. We did stitching in the parallax areas, between the stereo pairs, and then we had essentially one on top and two on bottom to help with kind of painting out tripods if we were ever doing fixed shots. And we had a really fun time with this camera, and went to a number of different places: Galapagos, Palau again, did Coco, Socorro. A little bit lighter, a little bit easier to manage, and just a lot of incredible memories and learnings, which ultimately these were all prototype rigs. And then the Virtual 3, this was created right before COVID. This was Zcam E2s. It was a little bit bigger than the V2, still custom control software, but we decided to go multi-view stereo instead of stereo pairs, so that we could get a higher mono resolution for panoramic screens and dome projections. And this did over 100 gigabytes per minute, kind of same concepts around unified control, unified power. And we did this one production for SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, and then COVID hit. And the imagery was absolutely beautiful. And then since then, it's kind of been shelved for about two years or so. But you can see, using 12 millimeter lenses on the bottom, we were able to create an almost 30K panoramic image. And there's a screen going up in the Middle East, which can handle that type of resolution. And it was able to do stereo if you did lenses that were kind of 8 millimeters to full fisheye. And had a ball with that, but ultimately because of COVID, I used that as my opportunity to start blue ring imaging, which I'll talk about in a second. This was another fun project, MSG Sphere. It's going to be about 100 million pixel screen going up in the Venetian, releasing next year. We did some of their underwater prototypes, and this was not stereo, but you can just kind of understand that, you know, a 20K by 20K image is becoming, it's becoming almost standard in a lot of these kind of bigger venues with Illuminarium, SeaWorld, MSG Sphere, and there's a lot of really interesting high resolution projects which are happening around the world right now. So then, I was trying to figure out, how do we move from prototype and cinematic to more of a product? How do we take this technology, package it, and scale it? Because it's really useful not just for storytelling, but for perception. So we started doing projects with OceanX and some submersibles, and developing deep water systems, and trying to figure out, you know, if we could stream this into a headset, would this be useful? And ultimately, there's some white papers that have really said that this is really beneficial to the operator and really beneficial to pilots, and enhancing the performance as they control these unmanned vehicles. So we've taken a lot of the concepts which we learned in Hollywood, and we've gained a number of DoD contracts with the Navy and the Air Force, in working on various vehicles. We're working on submarines, we're working on ROVs, on some AUVs, and we're taking the 3D camera concepts, and we're building 3D interfaces in augmented reality and virtual reality, and then we're storing this as 3D data, as synchronized and frame sync for synthetic training, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And so we're primarily, Blue Ring is now primarily a software company, which you can see some examples online. And then we're using the hardware as a tool for the interface. And because no one's really building 360 3D cameras, let alone full fisheye 180 3D, we've developed a bottom-up board level design, which is good at many different types of depths, lightweight, compact, and does almost zero latency streaming to a headset. And so our first two kind of commercial off-the-shelf cameras, the one on the right is 180 3D, and the one on the left is just 360 2D for more ocean monitoring and diver tracking, is what we're primarily using that one on the left for. But we're having just a lot of fun and a lot of success, we're finding, in this space to move from 2D displays to kind of multimodal interaction, 3D visualization, voice, gesture, and kind of taking this multi-display experience and giving people the ability to see like they see in real life above water. And these are very similar concepts as the autonomous driving industry. So we're doing this, you know, in some of these kind of bigger remote operations rooms, but we've created a kind of a mobile, ruggedized payload for these lightweight, medium-sized ROVs. And we filed a few patents around nausea mitigation and foveated cropping, and we've, I think, for the most part, solved nausea, and we have not really had any issues in our synthetic simulator or even on boats. And I'm not going to go too much into detail about that, but what we're finding and what the white papers have said is that it simplifies tasks, decreases task completion times, individual workload, and decreases cognitive load and usability. And that's been demonstrated in a paper recently by MBARI called Catching Jellies in Immersive Virtual Reality, a comparative teleoperation study of ROVs and underwater capture tasks. So, you know, because I'm an entrepreneur, not a researcher, I have to rely on my clients to demonstrate this in an academic sense, as we're very focused on building technology product which is useful and can scale. So with that, I've done about 15 minutes. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'll just give it back to you.